Sound check one. Hello, we are Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities, December 10th, 2024. We are currently waiting for quorum. Welcome, everybody, to the Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities Committee meeting December 10th, 2024. I will now call this meeting the Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities to order. Please note that we have quorum. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. I will now commence a roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Hope Bonenfant is not going to be here. She gave her regrets. Benjamin Cullimore? No. Lance Dingman? Thank you. Kara Hernold? Yep, I see your wave. Thank you. Levi Genosi?
Here.
Here. Leif Johansson?
Here.
Here. Hargan Carr?
You're just calling in.
Thank you. Paula Kilburn?
Yep.
You're here. Jake Maurice? I do not see Jake. Mark McNeil? He's here. Yep. Can you speak? Is there something wrong with your connection?
I got it. Here.
Perfect. Thank you. Tim Murphy, do not see him. Kim Nolan and Tim Nolan have given their regrets. Robert Westbrook, seeing him, and Councillor Taddison has given his regrets. Would the staff who are present please introduce themselves with their name and position, starting with Tamara?
Hi, it's Tamara Bates, Legislative Coordinator.
Sal Salamone, Legislative Assistant.
Rebecca Benke, Project Manager, Community Inclusion and Equity.
Michelle Martin, Manager of Accessible Transportation Services with the Transit Division.
Thank you all. And I do not see any other staff present. Well, Elsie Bates will now read the Hamilton Land Acknowledgement.
The City of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Ashinabek to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Thank you, Elsie Bates. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are a couple of changes to the agenda. We have under 6 delegation requests, 6.1, from Brad Evoy, Disability Justice Network, respecting item 12.2, accessibility of shelters and supervised encampments in the City of Hamilton. He is virtual and that is for today's meeting. We also have 2 new consent items under item 9.2A, housing working group meeting notes from November 19th, 2024, 9.3A, outreach working group meeting notes from November 19th, 2024.
Thank you very much. May I please have a mover and a second to approve the agenda as amended?
Mark.
Lance and Mark. Thank you very much. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is carried. 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Wait a moment. I have to declare an interest on 12.1 because it's regarding my son, which is clearly a conflict. So I will step out of that particular issue. I do have the declaration on file. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting, November 12th, 2024. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes as presented? By Paula, seconded by Levi. Q, is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, is there any opposed? And the minutes are carried. Thank you. 6.1, delegation request, Brad Evoy, Disability Justice Network, respecting item 12.2, accessibility of shelters and supervised encampments in the city of Hamilton in person, or sorry, virtually, for today's meeting. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the delegation request? Moved by Paula, seconded by Lance. Thank you. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So we're right into delegations. 7, members are reminded that questions of the delegations are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. The delegate will have 5 minutes to speak. First up, 7.1, Brad Evoy, Disability Justice Network of Ontario, respecting universal design standards in the city, public and city-supported housing, virtually approved October 8th, 2024. You have 5 minutes, sir.
All right, perfect. Hello, folks. I'm happy to be here and speaking to the committee, and I'm not talking about transit today. Can you believe it? Today, friends, I'm talking about some new standards that have come about in another municipality that I know that a lot of housing and disability and accessibility housing advocates are going to be looking at in the next little while. But I guess just to contextualize that a little bit. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and our broader, Canadian Human Rights Act, Ontario Human Rights Code, etc., all prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability, yet no Ontario law currently exists that requires that housing be accessible, and the AODA standards fail to include housing and accessible housing within its remit. Additionally, the Ontario Building Code currently only requires that 15% of new apartments, in any particular new apartment development, be visitable, not accessible enough to live there. Now, there have been submissions from the Ontario Human Rights Commission, even as far back as 2002, to the Ontario Housing Minister around issues with the conflict between the Building Code and Human Rights Code, stating that the Human Rights Code takes precedence over the Building Code. And so no Ontario government has taken any action in the last number of years to bring the Building Code in harmony with, our code-protected rights. And again, in 2020, there's been further statements from the Chief Commissioner on this particular issue. And, I think we're all, fairly well aware of that particular broader issue within our system. And so within the City of Toronto, there has been some success bringing forward new standards on this particular issue, which is really great and has been, I think, a really positive overall development. It came out of their accessible housing working group on increasing the city's supply of accessible, affordable housing, which actually goes a bit further than CMHC Universal Design Guidelines and adds some additional pieces that apply across the board to city-led affordable residential units. So in the case of Toronto, that would be TCHC, the Toronto Community Housing and Toronto Seniors Housing. But there's also opportunities within existing standards in that city to move that forward for private rentals as well, things people are looking at. But ultimately, I guess I just wanted to have this time to say to folks that this particular issue is on the horizon, and that there is some very successful, models to look at for accessible, affordable housing that, we're really hoping, I think, in the next little while to take to different municipalities and adapt and grow in those areas. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention. I know that it will be brought to city councilors' attention as well as to organizers in the city. So if you're familiar with our community group that works on transit, I'm sure there will be a similar group on housing in the next little while. As well, this is a part of a broader push by the Accessible Housing Network, which is a national network of disability organizations that have been really focused on trying to make broader changes to building codes, but are also looking at this kind of perspective on, accessible housing more broadly. So trying to ensure standards wherever we can. And this gets into fairly technical detail of, the sizes and placement of things like thermostats, light switches, wall outlets, all that kind of thing. But I'd be very happy to pass this along to members of the Housing Working Group and to begin a conversation in the new year. I think it's a really exciting set of standards that we can look to here in Hamilton and, in other cities as well. So I look forward to having further conversations with you all down the line as we join a movement for accessible, affordable housing.
Thanks very much, Brad. Are there any questions for Brad? No. Paula, can you take the floor for a minute there? Or chair, whichever.
Yes, I take
Thank you.
chair, sir.
Just a quick question and a comment. Are you aware that the Housing Working Group passed a motion regarding all these particular issues in 2020? And we are waiting for a report any day now from the Social Policy Housing Services Group and the Housing Secretariat.
Very broadly aware, James, but I still think these are really good standards to also take a look at, since they've in the City of Toronto case they've now been passed and are being implemented. So at the city level. So if there's helpful additional pieces there that could be helpful once you get that report, happy to pass that along and work together on moving this forward.
No, I just wanted to ask to see if you're aware of some of the work that we've done on this, because we feel very strongly about this particular work as well. Again, we have the problem of being visitable and habitable being two different things. So we are eager to work with anybody that's interested, and hopefully we'll hear some good news from the report soon. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
From Salvatore's. Okay. You may have the chair, sir.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Brad before we move on to the next? Seeing none? Okay. Thank you very much for that, Brad. Now 7.2, Brad Evoy, Disability Justice Network of Ontario, respecting item 12.2, accessibility of shelters and supervised encampments in the City of Hamilton, virtual for today's meeting.
Me again. All right, friends. Thank you so much again for having me. I want to speak, in support of the discussion you're later going to have around the, broad issues of encampments and the intersecting issues that have been, coming up around there. There's been a lot of legislative change on this issue. It's been very rapid in the past couple of weeks. I think it has been probably the thing that I've been chatting with folks around the province the most in the last little while. But, in the Hamilton context in particular, there's been a lot of community movement to support encampments. A lot of folks have signed on to a broader community open letter on this issue, and a lot of broader media and other conversations have been happening as well. Thankfully, in the moment, it doesn't look like currently proposed legislation is going to include use of the notwithstanding clause to directly override charter rights and freedoms of the most marginalized folks in our society. Which is, of course, directly against the immediate well-being and safety of all of us, especially disabled folks. When we look at this as well, what we have seen, however, from legislation, and the drafts of that came out yesterday, is that there is going to be some level of attack on the funding through the Ministry of Community and Social Services. So it's something that I would really urge folks to take a further look at. There's been some posts online through the Shift around some of that, which is run by the former Rapporteur on Housing for the United Nations. And also, folks, just to point folks in a particular data-driven kind of direction. The folks at the Canadian Human Rights Commission and the Office for the Federal Housing Advocate has just released some new data around housing and homelessness for disabled folks, noting that our disabled folks are more likely to experience homelessness because of violence or abuse, and that these figures were even higher for women with disabilities, that we are more likely to miss rent or mortgage payments and more likely to be forced to move due to financial issues, and that financial hardship is a main cause of homelessness for people with disabilities, and that ultimately we are also more likely to have unsafe drinking water, poor air quality, pest infestations, and issues with mold and mildew in our homes if we have them. We also are still not getting, as we all are aware, the help to live independently, and that trouble accessing government services is a federal issue, including transportation. And ultimately, folks, there's a whole host of pieces that have come out around this. In particular, the main reason for homelessness for 45% of people with disabilities was, in and of itself, cost. So ultimately, friends, I think that when we look at homelessness and encampments and the broader situation of unhoused folks here in our city, this is a disability issue. This is a disability justice issue. Ultimately, from everything we've heard from folks, both locally and provincially, most of the folks, who are unhoused in our city and in our province are ODSP recipients or OW recipients, or are only not eligible because of issues with actually connecting with folks through housing. So I think that when we consider these things in committees like this, I just want to leave folks with the ultimate message that these issues are a disability issue. When we see legislation coming out from the province on Thursday, because there is going to be provincial legislation coming on Thursday, it's really important for everyone who advocates for the rights and safety of disabled people to be aware of what's happening and the level of attack that is happening from some of this legislation. There is going to be, if the legislation that's proposed for the Ministry of Community and Social Services, forced restrictions placed on municipalities, but also on nonprofits who receive fundings from the ministry if they receive directives. So this could have an effect not just directly in terms of the direct violence enacted on encampments, but also on support networks for folks in the community who are unhoused. So again, I just want to alert folks to that issue and broadly support any measure to make shelter spaces and broader spaces for folks in the community more accessible. And I think that, in any demand that comes forward on these issues, I hope we also think about the impact of these broader pieces of legislation and consider the need for rent control, for raising social assistance rates, and bringing these pieces together. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much, Brad. Are there any questions for Brad on this one? Okay, I'm seeing none. Thank you very much, Brad. You made some great points today. I appreciate you coming to delegate. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation? Moved by Kara, seconded by Levi. Thank you. Is there is there any discussion on any of the delegations? No, sorry, no discussion. Is there anybody opposed to the motion? I'm seeing none, so the motion is carried. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you, James, and thank you all.
9, consent items. In the interest of time, we're going to hear all the consent items, 9.1 to 9.6, and then receive them together at the end. I'm going to relinquish the chair. Paula? Can't hear you. Yeah, 1 minute. No, how about Levi? Can I have Levi take the chair, please?
Sure.
Thanks very much,
I
Levi.
have the chair.
Okay. I guess 9.1, there's no verbal update for Bill. We did not meet this month. We will continue in the new year. 9.2, housing working group updates. We discussed the letter and the The letter regarding shelter space and the encampments and how it is disproportionately affecting people with disabilities. The letter is simply asking that we be involved in the discussions and in the work, making these more accessible and improving them for people with disabilities, because there are a lot of people with disabilities in shelters or in encampments and unhoused. Robert also invited me to the Acorn Gala, which I attended, to speak with a member of the board from Indwell. That was a good meeting, and hopefully we'll have them to the housing working group in the new year. 9.3 outreach working group updates. We discussed the letter to James Jr. We discussed the photo we did on December 3rd, the group photo. It was a very cold day. I really do want to appreciate Rebecca, Tamara, Blaze, Lance, and I guess myself coming out. We have one more? Councillor I knew there was one more. Councillor Taddison was there too. I really appreciate everybody coming out on that bitterly cold day. Unfortunately, when I went back later to get the second shot so we could stitch the two together with the purple background, it turns out that the sides of the buildings was purple, but the Hamilton sign was mostly red and very little purple, and we tried stitching it together. It was just overpowering, and we couldn't put the two images together. So we're going to have to try again another time. But I will have the group shot out to people as soon as we get it all cleaned up. Anything else we discussed? Briefly discussed the budget, and that's it. And I guess I will take back the chair, since, unless there was questions.
Any questions? I don't see none. You can have the chair back.
Thanks very much, Levi. Okay, 9.4, Transportation Working Group update. Paula.
Hi. Well, we talked about a motion that Tim has to about the fare assist, which he wants to do a motion about zero fare. So it's still in the works, so we don't have one to bring today. Michelle talked about, that's right, I haven't even actually looked at the notes, so I'm guessing right now. The working group, the policy working group working plan, we talked about that, and Michelle had written one, and we had no comments on it, so it is what it is. We had a discussion on the late and no-shows, which I guess in the new year they're going to start sending out information on the new policy, what the consequences are, and the point system. We also talked about the that there'll be a chance for people to what's the word I'm looking for? To disagree with the
Appeal.
Thank you. With the if there is a grievance, that they'll be able to bring it to a committee and state their case. And I can't remember what else there is. I'm sorry, I've been so busy this week. I just haven't had a chance to go over all the notes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thanks very much, Paula. Are there any questions for Paula? Seeing none. There was no strategic planning working group meeting, so there's no update. 9.6, open spaces and parklands working group update. There can't be one of that either because Tim and Kim aren't here. So we will just move on without that. So can I have a mover and a seconder to receive 9.1 to 9.6?
Mark.
9.5, sorry. 9.4 because there wasn't a 9. Yeah. Mark and
I'll second.
And Paula. Mark and Paula, thank you very much. Is there anybody opposed to the consent items? Seeing none, thank you very much. That's passed. 11, discussion items. 11.1, accessible transportation services policy review, working group work plan. Michelle Martin, manager of accessible transportation, is here to discuss.
Hi, thanks very much for having me. I just realized I haven't joined the web version so that I can share my screen and share the document for everybody. So I just have to share this, I believe. Oh, perfect, good. Okay. So as Paula mentioned in her summary of the working group meeting last month, I met with the Transportation Working Group to review the work plan for the ATS Policy Review Working Group. I was tasked with drafting the work plan by the working group, the Transportation Working Group. And I'll, if you'd like me to read it out loud, is that useful to everybody? Or do you want me to just, okay, I'll do that. I will let you know, there was a slight edit I made at the end, meant to streamline process. I didn't think it would make a big difference to the spirit of the work plan, but we can, I'll flag it for you when we get to it at the end. So the vision statement of the work plan are the 2 HSR guiding principles, 1 and 2. 1, customer experience is at the heart of what we do, and guiding principle 2, we honor equity, diversity, and inclusion. The mission statement of the policy review working group will be to ensure delivery of quality specialized transit service in compliance with the Accessibility for Persons with Disabilities Act, Integrated Accessible Services Standard, Ontario Regulation 19111. And that standard, of course, includes the transportation standard. And the mandate of the working group is as follows. Accessible Transportation Services, ATS, has begun a review of policies governing accessible transportation services. Currently, policies have been established by the city and others by the contractor, and there is opportunity for overlap and lack of clarity and ownership that has developed over time. The goal is to ensure that roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, that customer-facing policies rest with the city, and that the contractor has appropriate operational policies in place to ensure quality service delivery. ATS is completing this work based on the Accessibility for Persons with Disabilities ACPD report to the General Issues Committee back in 2020. It was item 6 of report 20007, and this has been incorporated into the ATS roadmap that was presented to Public Works Committee in 2024, which is item 8.2 on ACPD meeting 24002. And the following considerations apply to the work plan. 1, the list of policies slated for review shall include all policies listed in the document compiled by ATS and provided to the ACPD Transportation Working Group on July 23, 2024. Policies may be added to the list for review according to the prudent judgment of the ATS staff, according to operational need, or based on suggestions from the Policy Review Working Group. And once the above mentioned list is exhausted, the ATS Policy Review Working Group shall be disbanded and ATS Policy Review shall revert back to the ACPD Transportation Working Group. And finally, number 4, as policies are reviewed and the controlled versions finalized, they will be scheduled for review by ATS with the Transportation Working Group according to the frequency established by the Public Works Department, if policy updates are proposed, or if no updates are proposed, every 5 years, which was under the original motion. And that is the minor edit that was made at the end, really to save work. If there is no edit proposed with the regular review by Public Works Department, which is internally every 3 years, then we would bring it to the transportation work on a every 5-year timeline. Okay. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Are there any questions for Michelle? Oh, I see Mark.
So currently the review period is 3 years, unless the policy review committee suggests something else. If it doesn't, then it will change.
Content. Chat from Salamo.
To every Every 5 years?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. To the chair, Mark. So the original motion requested policy review every 5 years by the working group. And however, I was timing it to account for our internal public works review of control documents. So once something's been established in our list of control documents, the review dates revert to every 3 years. That's a required internal departmental review. But upon looking at that last paragraph, thinking, well, if there's not going to be a change to the policy in the internal review, if we haven't flagged anything for change, then we would simply say it has to be reviewed every 5 years at the working group. If that makes sense. I realize it's a little bit.
So it is 5 years, and it will stay 5 years unless the review group changes it to something else, like the internal review of 3 years.
Unless there was an edit planned.
Right. Okay. So it will just stay the same unless there's a consensus to shorten the period.
Yeah, the way it would work is if in our internal departmental review, it is determined that a policy has to be changed or edited, we would bring that edit forward to the transportation working group. Otherwise, we will commit to coming to the transportation working group every 5 years. If that makes sense. I realize it's a little bit confusing to say 3 versus 5, but my thought was to avoid a lot of unnecessary bringing forward of policies that aren't going to be changed and that have already been reviewed by the policy review working group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. I believe Paula had a question. Oh, I saw you waving. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Sorry. I'm seeing none. I guess that's it for that. So may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the work plan? Moved by Paula, seconded by Levi. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Are there any opposed? Seeing none. Then the motion's carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. 11.2, oh, sorry, delegation response, relinquished chair. Paula, can you speak? Can you take the chair?
Yes, sir, I would take the chair. So 11.2 is delegation response.
I have comments, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm a little bit, well, I'm not surprised by the response. Most of it, to me, reads that they feel that they're already doing their job and that our concerns are not warranted to be acted upon. They've laid this out in a variety of groups, and this was our official ACPD delegation in February, made by Mark and myself. They feel that they're in compliance with the Accessibility for Ontario with Disabilities Act. Even though that we're pointed out that even if they are in full compliance, it's not accessible enough. We've highlighted areas where we're still feeling underserved, still feeling it's inaccessible, difficult to use. And we're having troubles getting them to listen to those issues. I'm also concerned that, I mean, it's the ODA, the Ontario with Disabilities Act, clearly states that barriers should not be created. And some of the policy changes recently have created clear barriers. So it's hard to say that they're accessible, they're compliant with the AODA when they're violating the spirit of the ODA. They're moving on to transit bus operator training. They've pointed out that they're currently at 15% training. That's what they reported in February. So they haven't done any new retraining over the course of the year, and this actually states that. They did give a breakdown of how the training is done and how the refresher course is done. I am meeting with HSR in the new year regarding improving their accessibility training. which I look forward to discussing. But there's really no movement on that section as well. They haven't moved anywhere in the past 8 months, 10 months, something like that, 9 months, something like that. Anyways, bus design equipment. I can't really speak to this because we still have not had a discussion with anybody at HSR regarding bus design and equipment. This is something we've been asking for years. We'd simply like to have a conversation with the people that work on this stuff and still haven't. So I won't really mention that at all at the moment. We're still waiting to speak with them. Internal, external enunciators, they're telling us that when the internal and external enunciators are down, the drivers are calling out the stops. But we know that from the many months that we were down at the cyber attack, HSR drivers weren't calling out any stops during that time period. So clearly more work needs to be done here. We also still have issues with the sound inside the buses. Oftentimes the vibration of the buses itself is creating so much noise it's hard to hear. So that's something that still needs to be worked on. Position of stop requested devices. These are the yellow strips that we've complained about on several models, that they're in improper positions or they're in inaccessible positions. And we further complained about the yellow strips themselves. They require too much pinching, twisting, squeezing to actually get them to activate from our position, from a sitting position, pushing diagonally. They've simply stated that they were working on it, which is what they've told us for many years. So hopefully we will keep working on that. Onboard display screens, they are stating that the smaller print is actually crisper with the pixels. They've also told us that the 2011, 2012 models are the ones that still do not have rear-facing displays. They are planning to retire them over the next 2 years. So once they are done, every vehicle will have rear-facing displays. Then we move on to the Presto fare system. They gave an example of the many different transit areas around and explained that Presto really sets the fare boxes, positioning and design, and that all cities use pretty much the same layouts. But in our research, we found that many other cities have many different layouts. Some of them are much better than others. I wouldn't rate ours very high. They don't have accessible grab bars like some of the other cities do. The positioning is very far in the corner. So again, we still have work to do on the Presto system. When I went up to the HSR depot to show them some of the issues with accessibility, I proved to them pretty conclusively that wheelchairs can't even get near the Presto scanner in its current position. On a side note, Go buses actually have probably the best layout as I've seen in Ontario. They took issue with us pointing out the TTC as an example, but we simply use the TTC because that's the example they set when they pitched the program. Drivers are now to assist people with Presto cards. They will not be reaching into pockets, wallets, or purses, so have it either out in your hand or in a lanyard or something that's easy for them to grab. And they apparently will be scanning them at requested. They also stated that they have put us in contact with the accessibility group that works with Presto at Metrolinx, so that we can address the issues that we have with Presto directly. So they've just moved us on to the next department. Again, bus procurement. Again, we have not spoken with anybody regarding bus procurement. We know that different cities get different bus designs and different layouts. Even though they apparently are all in the same contracts with Metrolinx, we've already know that there's differences between our buses and other cities. So we'd simply, again, like to have a conversation about if we're asking for things to be different, like the inline seating system that we have instead of the parallel seating that other cities have, or We use natural gas, whereas other cities use diesel. These are major changes. So what other changes can be asked for while that's being done? Front door entry, they in here state that drivers will drop the ramp on an exception basis. I do want to update that I have achieved an accommodation, or I've received an accommodation, sorry, from the HSR regarding rear door access. Now, if I ask a driver to drop the rear ramp, they're required to come back and drop the rear ramp so that I can get into the rear position due to the wheelchair that I have not being able to turn properly in the front door. So that's available, I guess, to anybody. So I'm putting that out there. The HSR is also going to develop some sort of card or little sign that somebody can display to indicate to the driver that you need particular special assistance, like the rear door being dropped. So that's good movement. And the last one is accessibility features on the website, which seems to be an area where the HSR agrees that they can do a lot better. So they're going to work on improving the amount of information given out, describing the services provided, and making it a more accessible and friendly web space. So there has been some small movement, but we still need to do some work. So work to be done.
Thank you, James. Does anybody have any questions for James?
Chat from Salomon.
I don't see anyone, Paula.
No, I don't hear anybody either.
I just had a quick question.
Sorry?
Sorry, I just had a quick question. I'm just not able to put anything in the chat because I'm calling in.
Yep. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
James, I was just wondering, I know you talked about kind of what the progress has been like so far in the response. I'm just wondering what it looks like going forward with HSR collaborations. I know you mentioned you have a meeting in January, but just wondering what else is on the horizon in terms of collaborations and next steps to move some of this forward.
I would imagine that we would need to do an official response. I'm just giving you guys the update from what they've given us and from what I can see, and then the report quickly. And so I imagine that would be the next step, is providing a response or some sort of report back.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you, James. Do we need a motion to accept James's report?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can I
To receive
have,
it.
Can I have a motion to receive James's report, please?
Mark?
Mark and
seconded
Levi?
by
I'll
Levi.
second. Yep.
Okay. Any opposed? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, James,
Thank you very
back
much.
to you, sir.
Take back the chair. Thank you. Okay, 11.3, 2025 budget submission. Rebecca Banke, Project Manager, Community Inclusion and Equity, is here to discuss the 2025 budget submission.
Thanks, James. And I want to apologize to everyone for the readability via screen reader of the template that we have to fill out the budget form in. It's not the friendliest product, and I was working on an alternative version of presentation for this that would be screen reader friendly that I just didn't get finished in time. So it's been a busy chunk of time. The budget is, as reflected here, updates some vocabulary and the membership. It keeps most of the requested budget asks the same as previous. Still have the same kind of monthly meeting expenses. It includes all of the appropriate funds for both the Accessibility Fair and the Accessibility Awards program, and has us asking council for the same amount of money as previous. There's no stipulated updates to the breakdown of the fair or the awards budgets because those are handled differently. That's not part of the larger budget here. And I'm happy to take any questions anyone has or feedback on it. This is a draft.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Or
Lance, no?
no? Okay, well, thanks very much, Rebecca. Then that was very quick. Then may I have a mover and a seconder to approve the 2025 budget submission?
Mark?
Mark and Lance. Okay, well.
Sorry, Hargan, is that you again?
Sorry, it just got disconnected.
Yeah, no problem.
Mark and Lance. Okay, then are there any opposed? I'm seeing no one opposed to the budget. All right, well, thank you very much, Rebecca. That was easy peasy. 12, motions. I have to relinquish the chair to somebody other than Paula. Levi, would you mind stepping up
Yeah,
again?
that's-
I'll take the chair.
Thank you.
Okay. So this motion it's my motion. I need a seconder for the motion.
Sure. Mark. Yeah.
Mark? Okay, Mark seconds the motion. This is to give an honorarium to James's son for all the work he did on the website, the photographs, the T-shirts, the thingies. That's right. I'm having brain fog today. The logos. Thank you, James. The logos and everything. So I was putting forward a motion that we give James Jr. an honorarium of $250. So I think that's all the actual motion says, right, Tamara?
Why don't I read it out?
Thank you, honey.
Would you like, committee like to hear the whereases as well, or just the recommendation?
Just a recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All right, therefore be it resolved that the Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities present to James Kemp Jr. a letter expressing the committee's appreciation of his efforts above and beyond to assist with the Ability First Accessibility Fair, and that an honorarium of $200 be awarded to James Kemp Jr. $250, be awarded to James Kemp Jr. to be paid from an account number 300303 to be allocated from the remainder of the fair award budget. Be approved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? No questions. I don't see any. Okay. So can I have a mover and a seconder?
We have the mover and the seconder in Paula and Mark.
Okay. Anybody opposed? I see none. Motion moved. Accepted.
Take back the chair. Next.
Okay.
Do I?
You take the chair back, James.
You're going to have to take the chair, Paul. I guess.
Oh, okay. I'll take the
don't
chair.
have this in front of me to read.
Oh, 12.2. The accessibility
Yeah, I'm moving this, so you've got the chair.
Yeah.
of shelters and yes. James is putting forward this motion. Do you have a seconder, James?
No.
Can I have a seconder for James's motion, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. Would you like James to read the motion? It's about encampments in the city company. Do you have
Sure.
it, James?
I don't yet.
I think James has it in front of him. It is, I can read it though. Whereas the Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities Housing Working Group has prepared a letter for the General Issues Committee with regards to the accessibility of shelters and supervised encampments in the city of Hamilton. Therefore, be it resolved that the Accessibility Committee for Persons with Disabilities respectfully submit the letter attached as Appendix A regarding the accessibility of shelters and supervised encampments to the General Issues Committee for their consideration. Would you like me to read out the letter?
Yes, please.
All right, bear with me for one moment while I call it up. All right. Homelessness is an epidemic in Ontario that is affecting persons with disabilities as never before. Lagging social assistance rates, the commodification of the housing market, and the erosion of our deeply affordable housing supply have combined to produce the crisis we are experiencing today. The population of those unhoused is disproportionately affecting persons with disabilities, with some figures showing that more than half have some form of a disability. 40% of those unhoused not in some sort of shelter are on ODSP alone. While shelters serve as a vital safety net to catch those in greatest need, they are difficult to adapt to the needs of those with complex issues. Low barrier does not mean accessible to shelter there. People with mental health issues often do not live well in close quarters with others and seek the safety of encampments to the danger of shelters. This may be difficult to understand for those that haven't experienced the shelter system, but we have to approach this group with empathy and understanding. Forcing them to move along or forcing them into unsafe shelter conditions is not the best approach. Supervised encampments are a good first step to transition these people into housing, but we need to make them accessible if they are to serve the people currently living in parks. While a lot of focus has been put on to the supervision part, we have to make it a welcoming space for those that have difficulty managing the most basic needs of existence. With 80 units, there will be a percentage of those that need some sort of adaptation for those with disabilities. Communal areas will also need to have accessibility in mind. While we do not expect strict adherence to codes and legislation for temporary accommodations, we do expect the spirit of accessibility to be carried out to the best of our abilities. The ACPD's HWG is already consulting with the HATS program on ensuring accessibility in such tight and unusual accommodations, and we would be happy to work with staff responsible for the Barton and Tiffany sanctioned encampment to create accommodations on a case-by-case basis. The ACPD's Housing Working Group further suggests communication with shelter program coordinators to see if we can help make shelters more welcoming from an accessibility perspective. It is our hope that if we build them better, they will come. There are many agencies involved in this work, and we should leverage that local knowledge. We would respectfully request that accessibility be given more consideration when deciding these matters.
Thank you. So you've heard the motion and you've we've heard the letter. So does anybody have any questions on either? No? Okay. So we'll take
No one
a
is
vote.
raising their hands.
Good. So we'll take a vote. Anybody against? No?
Sorry,
Okay.
can we just confirm who the seconder was? Levi,
Oh, yeah.
correct.
Was it Levi or was it Lamb?
It was Levi.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the motion is passed.
Okay, thanks very much. I will take back the chair.
You have the chair, sir.
Okay, now we're on to general information, other business. Is there any general information, other business people want to bring up? Topics, discussions, invitations they want to make?
I just wanted to say that the Disability Justice Network is going to be meeting with Metrolinx sometime in the future. And I'm sure if anybody is interested, that Brad would send you the link for that meeting. So it would be I believe it's a Teams meeting. So I will keep everybody informed when it is, because I seem to have got myself on this committee. And I believe it's about the fairs. It's about, the fairs and the fare boxes. So.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right, seeing no other business. I guess we're moving on. Oh, sorry, Kara. Kara, you had something.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to just update the entire committee that Hargan and I sit on the Hamilton Road Safety Committee representing the ACPD. And following the last road safety committee that I attended, someone from public health reached out to myself and Hargan to meet to learn a little bit more about our group and our processes and how we feed into the road safety committee. So Hargan and I are obviously both like quite new to the ACPD, so we did our best, but afterwards we looped in James, and we will continue to provide updates on our engagement with the road safety committee. And heads up that let me just look at my email, remind me of the name of the person. Vanessa with public health, maybe reaching out to us in a more broad context to learn more about our work. So that's my update.
Thank you, Kara. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, Kara, will you be providing like a sort of written summary of ongoing matters or issues as you have attendance or meetings with them?
Truth be told, I haven't really put a lot of thought into it, but I'm going to guess by your question there's a need to do that. So I think that's something that can be done.
I think a just brief note of what you discussed, or even discuss with James, just so that we can attach it whenever to a meeting, like a report.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair request. And I think that should be done.
Between you and Hargan, some sort of notation about what your thoughts were of the meeting that was just had. You know, it's the only thought I had.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions for Kara? No, Paula, can you take the chair for a minute? I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So thanks for serving on the Road Safety Committee, you and Hargan. It's kind of important. I'll get together and discuss the topics of road issues. I do have a question on the most recent bike lane discussions. Was that raised at the road safety meeting? Can you inform us on anything about that?
It was just mentioned at the top of the meeting in brief, and that they at the time there was no actual like proposed legislation in the works to review, so they were going to discuss it at the next meeting once the proposed legislation was able to be reviewed. But I do think it's been passed since then, so unfortunately that provincial timeline was faster than our municipal timeline.
Yeah, unfortunately, it only meets every few months, I believe. So hopefully you'll have a chance to discuss the next one. Thank you very much. And I will take the chair back from you, Paula.
You have the chair, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kara before we move on?
Oh, no.
No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kara and Hargan, and I look forward to the next update. Is there any other business before we move on to adjournment?
I just wanted to say how sorry I was to hear about Paddy Cameron.
Yes, unfortunate.
Was not able to go to her memorial service, but she will be very much missed. Now, I know she wasn't on this term's committee, but can we do anything? Can we give a donation or can we not? I mean, she was on ACPD from the beginning, I believe.
Although ACPD has sent flowers and things in the past for members, it would not be appropriate to do that for a past member. If committee wanted to do that, it would have to be a personal donation and do that as a group.
Shame. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Unfortunate, she did put in many, many years. Okay, and there's no other business? I'm seeing none. Wow, this meeting went a lot faster than I thought. So 16, adjournment. May I please have a mover and a seconder to adjourn?
I'll move.
Moved by Levi, seconded by,
I'll second.
oh, I got Kara here. I did Kara.
Okay.
Levi and Kara. Is there any opposed to adjourning for some strange reason? Seeing none. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. It was a good meeting. I appreciate everybody coming, and thanks for getting quorum again. And have a good, have Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes, Merry Christmas,
Yeah, Merry
everybody.
Christmas, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. See you in 2020.